One of the things that is, of tremendous interest to marketers specifically is how you go about conducting research. So, let's think about, one of these projects and, was initiated either through, some high-level committee or a business person having a need or an emergency, something failed and we've got to come up with a solution immediately. We're wondering, especially in the non-emergency ones where it's, hey, we're trying to do a new capability or enhance some capability that we already have. How do you go about actually conducting the research to discover solutions, to narrow that down, and to decide who you ultimately want to talk to and buy?
So in my case, the first thing I start with is what I call the Goblin, which is a good old boy network. So I go to my peers in the industry, people I have close relationships to that I know have a similar environment, possibly have a similar problem that they've solved already, to find out, what did they look at and what were possible solutions that they found, because they've already done the research.
Okay, so peer-to-peer being
so
important.
So yeah, leveraging, the research time that I don't have to do because they've already done it on my behalf. If it turns out that I need additional information from that, typically the next approach I go to, if I know this is a hardware or software product, is most likely go to my strategic vendor. And that's to keep my technology portfolio management down to a level, you don't want to bring in in our case, we don't want to bring another vendor in from a supportability, from a contractual capability.
So in your environment, it really is, hey, we have a set of strategic vendors that we work with, and you're probably going to check with them first.
Yeah, I mean, if they've got a product that fits, the pricing's right, we already have negotiated a discount or whatever, it makes logical sense.
It's just much easier to buy.
And there's no integration, hopefully, that the vendors have done a good job in integrating to other environments.
Quick question then. So if there were a new vendor that offered, similar or analogous capability, what would it take for them to get noticed by you?
Okay, so that's when I go to my third level, and this is where TechTarget and other organizations are involved, is I'll go out and go to paid subscription services like a Gartner or Forrester that typically will start looking at people at the leading edge technology space into the cash cow space to see where the vendors are fitting from several criteria. Or I'll go to TechTarget, look up, see if they've got any white papers, documentation, stuff like that. And if necessary, even Google searches and look on the web and use a couple of key phrases I'm looking for and see if vendors pop up to at least give me a initial set of products or vendors that I might want to consider.
Yeah, sure.
And again, this is all preliminary. This is, let's space and understand where the marketplace is here, what are the kind of the vendors who are in that space. And it gives me, kind of a long, short list to start working from,
sure,
other than from scratch and calling a lot of people up.
Okay, all right, very good.
And from my perspective, it probably depends on what vertical you're looking at. If it's in applications, there's always new innovations and there's new applications out there that are that have different value propositions. When you get into infrastructure, it's a little bit more challenging to just up and change an infrastructure when you've got a significant investment already.
Because I know about this great software-defined networking, and it'll be perfect for you guys.
Absolutely. So whether it's an application or an infrastructure or an emerging technology. So right now in mobile device management, that's a new frontier for us. Where it's a blank slate. We're looking at lots of different products, but we're also looking for guidance on what best practices are in governance and all of that. So that's a very research-intensive market right now, just because there's so many unknowns.
The way that we kind of look at that, or the way that we have separated out those types of buys is, well, is it a first buy? Is this the first time we're solving this? Or are we enhancing our last solution? Or now do we know what we don't know? And we definitely see some different research paths there, and we can tell actually from activity intelligence.
Point out that there is one other path, and that's when you have a distributed culture environment. So in a previous job that I had, we had 3 lines of business that were very culturally different. And so even though it might be a second or third buy, we may actually change the architecture quite substantially to fit within the culture of that subunit of our business.
Okay.
So, let's say we have one where we have a distributed sales environment, where another line of business, they have a centralized sales environment. That could drastically change the idea. Maybe we have to go to mobile for one. Traditionally, the other organization could care less about mobile.
Sure.
So there is the third case of we have a culturally diverse organization. and we have to select something that will fit from a culture perspective, not necessarily an integration at a technology level.
So what you're talking about is something that we often call IT business alignment. And it's interesting if you're in a conglomerate type of situation where you have multiple businesses that you're supporting, especially if those individual businesses have their own P&L, you're viewing them as clients, I would assume, and you're going, hey, whatever they need is what we're going to deliver.
With the flavor of there's still a corporate layer, even if it's thin, that needs to be consistent across the corporation, because eventually everything has to roll up. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So you have to make sure that there's not a lot of integration at the executive level, that you can integrate from the bottom to the top, and you can look at it as an enterprise architecture rather than a component architecture.
Okay, all right. Interesting.